Spoiler alert, I'm old, so I've been doing this a long time and have seen a lot of technological changes in a lot of different directions. This is definitely one of them, and I think it's really something that's going to be important for everybody to at least be familiar with and potentially make a part of your workflow sometime in the future. So this is Making the Cut, AI content creation for video, or how I learned to stop worrying about and love generative video. This is me. I'm Russell Johnson, the creator of oddjohnsons.com, an experimental media site. I'm a professional video editor, content creator, podcaster, who isn't a podcaster, and I make a pretty serviceable margarita. I think Mr. Loomer would also confirm this.
That's the most important.
Exactly. So this, and this is my Lensa avatar. I don't know if y'all remember Lensa from like last year. You give it 8 pictures and it sends back all of like these steamy, sexy photos of you. Instead, I got that. So that's the best AI can do in some instances. So what are we going to talk about? I'm going to use the pointer because it's cool. That's all right. I just don't want to trip. We're going to talk about AI, what it is, and maybe as importantly, what it's not. Practical ways that AI can be used in your post-production workflow, some of the best generative AI tools for content creation, a little bit about the generative community. There's really a community sort of building up around this technology and people who are using it in different ways, and then a little bit of what the future holds, and of course some of the best parts of these sessions are Q&A, and so we'll have time to ask questions if anybody has questions. So, AI. The name is only half right. Artificial, you betcha. It is not existing in nature, it's something that we have made, but intelligent, much less so. What we are working with right now is not what they call or refer to as AGI, or artificial general intelligence. It's just, sorry. Got a little project going on here. It's basically very powerful predictive models that have been trained on text, have been trained on audio, have been trained on video. So that, for example, if you type into ChatGPT, Mary had a little, it's going to say lamb. It knows, it's been trained on enough information to know that that is, statistically speaking, what you're going to want next. And now you take that same very, very simplistic idea and it's being applied to video content, audio content, images, as I'm sure some of you were in the session just before this, which went into some of this stuff. Hopefully it will not be repetitive. The generative AI image platforms began to emerge in like 2021, DALL-E being among them. But then by 2023, we were already seeing the first generative video models come out. And that's a lot of what we'll be talking about today. Okay, sure, fine. But what can it do for me? Here's the thing. I know that a lot of the heat around the AI conversation is in sort of like the generative image, generative video space. And that's cool, and we will talk about that. But I wanted to start with some more simple, really just kind of foundational, practical things that you can do with this technology. It's not necessarily sexy, but there are improvements that are AI-based that really can be helpful. The first, and I'd say one of the best in my mind, is the text-to-edit feature. Now, this didn't start necessarily with Premiere and Adobe. If anybody remembers the platform Descript, they were one of the first to take video content and quickly transcribe it on import, and then it allows you to essentially edit like you edit a Word document. I don't know about y'all, a lot of the work that I do is involving editing, for instance, interviews. And sometimes those interviews come with beautiful, exhaustive time code notes that tell you exactly the take that's great and everything you want that's beautiful. And another time, it's, well, here you go. Usually the last take's the best, and that's it. So in a world like that, being able to take your content, and as you can see here, off to the side, this is sort of like the transcribed area. You can go in and just kind of read through where the takes are busted. You don't need to scan through everything that is ultimately not going to work. You can kind of do this high-level view and get to the places that you want to go much faster. And then basically cut and paste. Again, just like a Word document. You go in, the take is bad, you eliminate it, boom, it's out of the timeline. You take the one that you want, you copy it, you paste it somewhere else in the timeline, boom, it's now in the order that you want. I have found this to be one of the most single useful new advents in Premiere, and has totally changed the way I do this kind of work, because it goes quicker to just get the backbone of your story and your content, and then you have more time to, to work on the visuals, to do sound design, to do other things. It's not like you're necessarily, at least is the way I try to look at it, it's not like you're necessarily trying to just say, oh, well now this edit job that used to took me 10 hours, well I can do it in 2. It's like, no, I want that 10 hours, but I want those extra hours to do other better things that are going to elevate the product, and I think you can reasonably make that argument. Okay, so I call this aspect ratio drama. See if this one sounds familiar to anybody. So this is just a video, it's going to be online, it's just like on TikTok, it's square. I just need it in square aspect ratio. Are you sure? We could do both. No, I just need it in square. Okay, great. The next day, guy, you know what we really need is a 16 by 9. That would be awesome. So I've got this little guy, and obviously, as I say, he's just, oh, he's so angry. But it's all square. Now they've changed the order. What I was able to do, using AI, is use Photoshop's generative fill feature. That may have been discussed a little bit in your previous session for people who were here, by taking a still image of my video, bringing that into Photoshop, using generative fill, pulling out on either side additional image, and letting it generate. It then basically is kind of a down and dirty set extension that I can do very quickly, and then take that, bring it back into my original project, and now he's angry, but he's in a larger room. And that's just, one quick down and dirty. Again, I've had clients come to me with images they've given of, things that they've taken, photographs of whoa. There may be more of that to come. And, people change their mind. The thing that they wanted to be a close-up before, suddenly they want it to be a wide shot. Well, now, whereas in the past it would have been, I just can't do that, or you're going to have to find a new image. There are ways that you can move forward. We've got that B-roll. Sometimes, and see if this rings true with anybody, certainly in kind of the pandemic era, we were working on a lot of projects where you're just getting people's, video chat camera footage for interviews. Sometimes you send people a little camera. Can you just pick up a little B-roll of wherever you are? They're not going to pay for the crew to come there. The crew can't come there because they're under quarantine or what have you. And so there became less and less imagery or additional supporting imagery going into projects. Sometimes people just don't get it. They just don't take the time to acquire it. Well, sometimes now, even if you've got something weird like small orc man walks towards scary cave, you can create small little moments like this on your own and use them as supporting imagery throughout your project. Or if you just have something really weird, we need spaceman playing an accordion in the post-apocalypse. You're not necessarily going to get that on Shutterstock. So it's something that you can bring into existence. And this is actually one of my favorites. I find this again, it's light lift, but kind of nice. If you have a still image, say it's your still image, you did the photograph, or maybe it's something you bought on stock, you bought it on Adobe, and you just want to give it a little extra life. There are ways using certain generative AI tools to do that. I'm going to kind of walk through it step by step, but as you can see now, whereas this was a still, there's a little breeze blowing through the grass in the foreground. The clouds are moving through frame. Even just having that little tiny bit of movement can sometimes be nice when you're trying to create a mood or do something atmospheric. Now, in this instance, I was using a tool called Runway ML. We're probably going to be going to Runway ML a lot over the course of this talk. You kind of love the first generative AI tool that you used best. And this is definitely the one I quickly invested a lot of time in. They have been developing over the year. It seems like they come out with a new tool every couple of weeks. And this is called Motion Brush. And I think that this launched 3 or 4 months ago, maybe 5, in which basically you take your image, like in this case, I have my robot in a field, as you do. and then you take one of the brushes and you paint the areas that you want to generate some kind of movement into. And there's like up to 5 brushes that you can use. So it's like, oh, there's all the magenta here. Oh, but then I get a second brush and I'm down here in the grass. Let's have all that going and hit generate. And then similarly, you just have, you know, our field of dreams Android out there with the clouds moving around and a little bit of movement there in the grass. It's a nice way to just kind of spruce up a still image if you need to, if you want to. This is another place where I think that this has been very helpful. And again, it's not always about trying to replace somebody or just make generative video like the new thing that everyone does. Previs is a great way to use this technology. I can't draw. My wife can draw, my daughter can draw, I cannot draw. That brain to hand pathway just never matured for me. But as a result, I've had to do things like ripomatics, or you do stick figure drawings, whatever crude thing you can do to try to communicate to either your crew or your client what it is things are going to look like. Well, now you've got a more enhanced way to say, okay, yeah, it's got to be a modern house like that. That's really what I want. I've gone through and I've done it until I know that it's the right thing. Oh, it's all about a log reading the newspaper. So that's his life. I get it. Oh, and his son who lives in a cruddy place. They're not having a good day. But these are all scenes exactly the way that I want them. Oh, and then he's going to work and it's that exact shot. These are just kind of new tools for communicating, even if it's just intercommunication with people that you're going to work with to shoot something, to edit something, what have you. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about the tools themselves. Midjourney. This is probably kind of reaching back into this talk that you already just saw. Midjourney is one of the early image generation tools. And I know this is very high level, and probably a lot of you, I'd say probably at least half of you, maybe more, already kind of know this, but I'm just going to do a quick overview. Again, these image generation platforms, they all work basically the same. You put in what you want, photo of real kitten playing poker. It thinks, it starts rearranging its little image cloud until finally, after a minute or so, boom, you have adorable kittens. They're playing poker. What could be better? And other tools that do basically this same sort of thing include like DALL-E. I think it's up to DALL-E 3. Adobe's Firefly is sort of the code for any of their generative AI stuff that they're incorporating into the tools that already exist. And just as a little pro tip, you can go deep on what these different platforms each do well. Like for example, it's sort of roundly considered that Midjourney does a better job of people, say, than like Adobe. DALL-E does better environments, what have you. They all kind of have a strength. I mean, they're all changing and evolving all the time. But one thing I've noted for certain, since probably everybody here either has access to or knows about Premiere or Photoshop, you use the Adobe Creative Suite. If you need to go through and just tweak something, if you just need to add something, say, I picked that bottom kitten, yeah, the third image, he's great, he looks so intense, but he's not holding cards, so I want that, I need to have the cards. You bring that into Photoshop, and you can in a more controlled way, isolate the area that you want to be manipulated, and say, I would just draw a little square, kind of right there by the hands, type in holding deck of cards, holding poker hand, and then that's all that changes. So you just get that little bit. You're able to manipulate what you want. And I have found, for my money, that Adobe and the Firefly suite are among the best in doing that sort of controlled manipulation. So take that for what you will. Okay, here we are, back to Runway. Runway ML, video to video, and text to video. They kind of came onto the scene and got everybody's attention doing what they called, I kind of did this in the wrong order, didn't I? Yeah. Well, the text to video feature is very similar to what we just saw with something like Midjourney. You have their interface, and you type in what you want. In this case, I said cats playing chess, kind of keeping with my cat theme. And it's going to come up with 4 reference images. It's like, well, like how? Like close up, like this one, or maybe they're facing off like that. You pick the one that you want, and then you make that your reference. And then again, if you want to, you can go in and add little moments with the motion brushes. If you just want to try to get, a little bit of movement here and there, hit generate. And then you have them, one guy's doing a little move. Oh, just a quick tap. That cat's kind of a mutant. It's not always perfect. But that is their basic, that's the basic workflow for what they call the text to video. And the other thing that you can do beyond just the motion brush is they have simple camera move buttons where you can say, well, I know I'm going to want them like panning into the scene like this, or I want to push in, or what have you, or I want a combination, I want a Dutch angle. You can program all that into the beginning, and then you've got that baked into the shot.
Will it give you multiple shots with different camera angles? Same image or no?
Once you've picked your preview, then it's just gonna go with that. But you can make tweaks. You can re-render, you can change the prompt, you can go in and try different motion brush techniques. That's why I try to keep an isolated reference clip first, because if you go down the rabbit hole of just starting to manipulate it, suddenly it's lost and you can never get back to that original one. So save your work. I guess that's true of anything. But then you can go back and experiment more. It's imprecise. We'll get to the pros and the cons here in a minute. So the other way, though, the way that they really kind of started, and I maintain is still probably the best way to get really kind of solid control using this tool, is to create or either film or like pull elements from Mixamo and have some sort of motion already created that you're then just telling Runway to change the look of. It's in essence, it's like it's applying a skin to it. So this is me. I did a whole thing where I basically just acted out all the bits. Badly, that you would obviously not want to see that movie, but I could then take that reference into ML and say, okay, well what I really want this to look like is like a 1950s sci-fi metal man robot. All right, so that's what you get. You play around until you have it the way you want, and then that's the final. So those sort of things, that level of control is possible. It's not automatic. It's not like you just press a button and then you can use the export as is, but it does work. So some other options for this same basic technology: Pika Labs, Sora. You may have heard of that, or you see it kind of percolating around in social media. Not available yet, but it is something that's being highly lauded and is apparently a great new level of visual fidelity for this kind of technology. It's supposed to be out sometime this year for us normals to use. And then, of course, Google just came onto the scene. I guess it was last week, was the Google event, and Google VO is supposed to similarly work in the same way and take this all up to a whole new level. So I have not done as much with the audio manipulation, but we had a question up here in the front row about audio. And so I have done a little bit of experimenting. Udio, there's so many. I mean, just Google it. You just can't, it's a deep rabbit hole. But Udio is one that has really been well lauded. In fact, I think President Loomer is the one who said you should check this out, so I did. And as I mentioned earlier, I do a podcast. Myself and my friend Matthew Gray is my co-host. And for a long time, if we needed a little bit of incidental music, like our title and stuff like that, his son is a very talented musician. And so he did our credits music and would do other music. But then in the subsequent months, he discovered animation and girls. So he doesn't really have any time for us anymore. So I, for example, just to try this out, I was like, oh, what would be some nice kind of like ambient, sort of play out music, chill, electronica. It's not bad. It's just like you're playing out, you just need a little something. Similarly, you have the ability to go through and change parameters. Other tools include 11 Labs. 11 Labs, they're more focused on things like AI voiceover technology and voice clones. So long story short, they have a bunch of baked in sort of like AI voices that they use and you can use if you're a member of the platform. Other people create voices and put them up there that you can use, so it just kind of grows their library. They have a user-generated content library. Or you can clone your own voice. I say that, I mean, technically, you can clone anyone's voice if you've got like 4 minutes of them talking. Not ethical, not cool. If it's yourself, great. And so I did that because, again, going back to our podcast, shameless log rolling, Adaptation Nation, check it out. I would do promos, but to do them, you know, where I've got to set up a mic and I don't have a great space and the dog is barking and it sounds bad and, you know, that takes time and edit it was just bad and it never got done or it took weeks. So I cloned my own voice, and now just being able to type in something, here's the script, it comes back, it's decent fidelity, it's already cut, you go right in. I was able to do 4 promos in a weekend. And you can judge for yourself.
How come everybody else's digital avatars are all sexy, and mine looks like it was drawn by a 3rd grader? Not cool.
So it kind of sounds like me run through a Jimmy Kimmel filter or something. I don't know. It's not exactly right, but it's fine for a promo on TikTok. It's fine if something has to be done and it's timely and has to be done quick. So yeah, these tools are also similarly available.
How come everybody else's digital...
Yeah, shut up. So now this is something that I didn't see coming and didn't necessarily expect, but have found to be really cool about all this is there's a real community sort of cropping up around this technology. A lot of people are experimenting, doing short films, doing, you know, entire movies using this technology. And the platforms themselves are doing a lot to support that. So for example, Runway just sponsored the AI Film Fest in Los Angeles. I think this was a couple of weeks ago. And you can see here one of the finalists. You know, they are by and large pretty arty, kind of ethereal, you know, image-driven, because the level of control for doing sort of like dialogue-based narrative isn't quite there. But they're kind of cool. I mean, they're kind of interesting. And these platforms are encouraging people, come on, play with this technology, let's see what you can do. Now, the cynical side of me said, well, yeah, of course, because you have to pay for these platforms. They want you to use them all the time. But a lot of times in these, what they started doing next, which is like deadline art opportunities. For Runway, it's their Gen 48, 48-hour film festival. Pika Labs just recently did a 72-hour film festival. If you register to do those, again, because they just want to see how far people can push the technology, they'll give you the credits. They'll say, like, we'll give you 1,000 hours worth of credits. So it's not like you're paying to be in their festival. They're letting you experiment with that stuff. And it's really a cool opportunity. So far, Gen 48, they've done 2. It sounds like something that they'll be doing kind of every quarter. So I would say, you know, get on X, get on Twitter, follow Runway, and you'll see these crop up from time to time. Some of the outputs are really remarkable. And Runway also has what they call Runway TV. And that is, it's basically like a channeled web page. So they've got like people who've done science fiction. This is the whole thing that I did, where I was like, you know, walking around the house and then took all that information and transferred it onto these models, created other images. This appeared on their sci-fi channel. They have like a comedy channel. They've got like, you know, documentary channel. And again, reinforcing this idea that it's not replacement, but it's a different way to tell a story. They have an aesthetic, to some people is interesting, some people, I'm sure it's not. But you do, the bottom line is, a single person can, from beginning to end, create a full narrative story using this technology in a lot of different ways. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, I love those kind of deadline art things anytime. Anybody who's ever done one for real, shooting, editing, getting everything done in a certain time period, having to finish is very liberating, I think, in a lot of ways. So those things are also all available, and things that I think that they'll probably do more of because it seems to be a big success. So what does the future hold? The thing that I've seen, I mean, and it's changing every day, so it's difficult to even dive into this question. But maybe some of y'all have seen this. I've seen pieces of this kind of tech when Adobe did Adobe Max last time. They've just released this, and it's kind of showing how they plan to incorporate the tools that already exist, say in Photoshop, directly into Premiere. So just take a look at this for a second. Yeah, right? So it's like, oh, okay, that's a dinky amount of diamonds. Who steals 18 diamonds? Yeah, let's get some more diamonds in there. Yeah, it's cool, right? I mean, so it's doing the tracking, it's recreating the image, it's doing all that stuff. It can also be used to take things out of the frame that you don't want. Boom. Who wants a car charger? Get it out of there. And again, this is all moving around. And then I love this one. Yeah, nope, oh, that watch stinks. Let's get the new watch. Oh, this guy totally should be wearing a tie. He's that kind of criminal. So all of that is coming. If they've gone as far as to put this out there now, I would say by the next Adobe Max, this will be released. I mean, and you'll have it. And what's been great, again, Adobe I think is doing a lot of things right. But one thing is they haven't really been making people pay extra yet. I mean, Adobe, your subscription's not cheap to begin with, but it's not like they're like, oh, here's your subscription, and now for $50 more a month, you can have the AI-powered subscription. So far, they're putting this in everybody's hand. So Sora, the next big thing. We're going to come back to this. Some of you may have seen this short film has gotten a lot of play. Airhead. It's a group called Shy Kids, I think. They're one of the people who have been allowed to use Sora before its public release, and they created this short film, it's cute, and that's pretty remarkable. However, I choose this one to kind of start to wrap things down with because it's an important launching off point to the fact that these things still need humans. I don't know if anybody saw the follow-up on Airhead, but it's like, oh yeah, it became quickly obvious, or at least Shy Kids admitted, well, this stuff wasn't all just generated out of Sora. It's like some of it were, the raw pieces were. We then had to take that using traditional methods like After Effects and roto things out or change the color. It's like there's not a level of precision that is professional yet. And so to do this, there is still manipulation and other work that has to be done. It has to be edited. It had to be written. Humans had to come up with the idea and the story. All that stuff is still reality. Maybe someday that gets completely automated. I don't think so. I've been wrong about stuff before, but we'll see. And I think it's worth noting, it won't be everything everywhere all at once, but, and I come back to Runway, I swear I'm not a shill for them, but I know that people have that sense, and you were talking about it in the previous session, and it's not unreasonable to be like, these platforms and these things are trying to take work away from me. They're like changing our jobs, they're taking our jobs. Well, maybe they're changing them, but again, I think that there's going to be ways in which they still will evolve to be tools that have to in some way be a part of a process that use a person. Maybe it's fewer people. Maybe it's like, oh, a one-person band can do a larger thing because they have that AI-powered assistance. But Runway came into being, or it came into prominence, working with the Daniel brothers to create this movie. Did anybody here see Everything Everywhere All at Once? Okay, I thought that movie was great, and it had a lot of effects. those effects were able to happen because they used Runway. Runway developed tools, worked with them to be able to create a lot of that stuff on the cheap, because they didn't have a big budget. They didn't have anything. They didn't have a lot of money. So they said something like, like half of that movie they wouldn't have been able to do if they didn't have the Runway tools. And Runway, again, you can go check it out, Google it. It's not just the generative bits. They have like a rotoscoping tool. They have, I think, a graphics function, color correction. It has all these other editorial assets that you can use. And again, if you get more of that, I'm all for it. Thumbs up. But there is still a long way to go. There's a lot to consider. Kind of this is our pros and cons section. The video is often meh. It's warpy and weird. It's not, it doesn't come out of the platform ready to go. It needs to be manipulated. It needs to be redone. It needs to be somehow changed in such a way that you can use it in a proper way. The concerns about copyright, compensation, and fairness are real, absolutely. I have a personal kind of ethics model that I try to apply to doing stuff like this. I don't do give me a picture in the style of Picasso or in the style of anybody. I consider that kind of bumping up against a no-no. You can use detailed information. You can use all the information you have as video professionals using really specific cameras, using a specific lighting, and it will sometimes know and be able to react to that. So you can craft a style. I don't think just drafting on someone else's style is necessarily a great thing. And hopefully there will be, and I know that there's efforts to begin, paying people for these things, paying if your images or your content is being used as a trading set. And there's a couple of big lawsuits happening. I mean, it's also entirely possible that a couple of these lawsuits hit, and this time next year, there's none of this, or it's changed considerably. So all that is happening, and it's a conversation that's worth continuing. But I don't think it should preclude people from getting to know this technology, because it is going to happen, I believe, in some way. Ethical issues about misinformation. It kind of says itself. I mean, but these are the times we live in. I think that some of the watermarking technology or things like saying, hey, this is AI generated, that's good stuff. That there should be things that allow you to identify this content is what it is and how it was made. I think that's not a detriment. And yeah, as I said before, they're still just tools. They're tools in their infancy, but that's, to me, also kind of what's fun about them. It's like you almost have to trick it into doing what you want sometimes. And it's a different way of thinking and a mode of working, but the output is kind of unique and kind of interesting. But the human creativity still matters, without question. And it's going to be an interesting time of change. So, any questions? And then just so you know, I'm keeping an eye on the clock because at the very end, we've got a little kind of like pre-raffle giveaway scenario. But if anybody has any questions, please let me know now. Other Russ.
Thank you, Russ. It's been great. Just from the very beginning, when you did the aspect ratio extension, did you do that in the same program that you created the original image, or were you able to use different?
Okay, so I know it's loud with the swamp cooling things. He was asking in that original set extension example, did I create the image that I ended up extending in Photoshop? Is that in the same app? And the answer is no. Everything that's going on there is the robot, that's an actual stop motion element on green screen. That's composited on a background, just a square background that was created in Midjourney, one of the other image generators. But then I was able to take a still of the video and just pull that still into Photoshop, and it still does the same thing. It does its work. Exactly. And so then I take that still and map it into my video.
That was 3 different AI.
Yes. That's right. That's right. Anybody else? Oh, come on. The other guy got lots of questions. You.
Also on the set extensions, I noticed it it's a set extension on you're clipping on photos or something, would it be able to incorporate that, or is it basically a sitting around?
Yeah, that's a good question. In this instance, right now in the current technology, no. If it had gone off screen, it couldn't have done anything about it. However, I hazard to guess that when Premiere releases these new tools that allow you to put on a tie or a new watch, you can probably get it to like add an elbow back in and at least give it a shot. I think that that's coming, but that wasn't what that was.
What tool do you suggest for up-resing and color upscaling video?
Yeah, well, you're in the right place. I think the person coming on after me is from Topaz Labs, and that's who I've used very successfully. Yeah.
So in your short that you made, it looked like you were able to keep the character mostly on model. Any tips on that? Because that's a big problem with some of these.
Yeah, I did, and I'll tell you how it was a wonky workaround. But as I mentioned, and you saw, I was doing most of the basic animation through performance. I would then take that, and especially since it was like robot characters. In general, robot or characters that aren't human, it's easier to do. But in this instance, have any of y'all heard of Wonder Studios? This is another crazy cool AI tool. Wonder Studios allows you, if you use their platform, you can just take any video of me walking into this building to come here. And they've got like 8 stock 3D models, or you can load your own 3D model. And it does all the roto, it replaces you with that robot or character. I then took because I didn't want it to just be their characters, I took those robotic characters that were a little closer to what I wanted, and then ran them through Runway. There's something called the seed number, which if you copy the seed number and you repeat it on ones that you want to look similar and use the same terminology over and over again, it way increases your chances that you're going to get that consistency. Yes?
So I'm interested in the input sources for Runway specifically. Like Dolly, that's OpenAI, so whatever you put into OpenAI, they have it. What is the policy when you're putting your video into Runway to make a video to video? Is that now theirs to use for however they?
Whatever they can get to train off what you've put in, my understanding is yes. I mean, they're gonna use that to try to do that better. I've contacted them directly. I'm like, is this available for commercial use? And they're like, yes. It's like whatever your final output is, because it's coming from these things, it's your prompt, it's your reference, it's doing it over and over again. You can do that. However, I do think, similar to what the other gentleman was saying earlier, I don't think you can necessarily copyright it like, now I'm the only person who can ever use that robot running on the beach.
But what about my source that I use to create that video?
I think it becomes a part of the training data. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that everybody is absolutely correct to think about, and that will need to be addressed, every business will need a strategy for, is, I think the other gentleman was saying as well, it's completely ethical if you can train your own models. Runway ML does have it has a section that allows you to train your own model. So you could give it all your art, you could give it all certain images from people, and I believe if you're doing that you can control, and then it's like, it's a little bit more of a walled garden. It makes it more consistent, but then it's also you using your own stuff. But yeah, companies, if you've got proprietary video or things, you don't want to just put it on any of these things and assume that it's not going to be out in the world, because it will. Anybody else? Yes?
Take like 3 minutes or an hour for videos
To render? Minutes. With very few exceptions. Now, it's always like in just little 4-second blocks. And you can always extend that, or always, if you're on the right platform tier or whatever, if your 4 seconds is working, it's really kind of, looking good for you, then you can continue to expand it by additional 4-second runs. By the time you get to about the third, it's lost the plot, and it's not really helping you all that much.
For things like Runway and those programs, are those web-based programs or are those application exclusive?
They are currently primarily web-based. I think that they're all experimenting with and trying to develop apps. I think that that's on the whatever, roadmap. Anybody? Yes?
Do you have any tips on, like you were just talking about, the
Stuff like that, I tend to go back to doing it where I can control it in the edit. To me, these things they're good for creating raw pieces that you then can and in fact have to manipulate to do anything cohesive with. And in an instance like that, I would just do it in Premiere. Yeah. The optical flow is awesome, and why not? Oh no, he's just getting cool air. All right, well, okay, yes.
You point my direction, so I'll pop the question. I'm checking out this software called Agent, where it's you to a different foreign language. Have you tested out any software like that? There's some competitors. I was curious if you had any knowledge of that.
I have to be honest that I haven't. I think that 11 Labs does the same thing just for audio. I know there are a number of them that do it just for audio. And in fact, it's easier than ever to, for example, if you have your podcast, I think 11 Labs does this, and you want to syndicate it to a Spanish audience or a Russian audience, taking that, feeding in your entire, 30-minute podcast and having it translate that is a pretty doable thing.
Agent actually takes your video, so you see your
Oh, yeah.
converts your dialogue into any language.
And does the lip sync as well, right? Yeah. That's rad. No, I have seen that. The other one's super creepy. The AI eye contact. It'll take you, you're like, well, I don't know, I don't like looking at the camera, I'm really shy. And it just like, whoop, boom. It takes your expression and your eyeballs and has them pointing right at the camera. So now you can even be a cruddy performer, and AI can take care of it for you. Yeah, so that's coming. All right, well then we have time for, oh, sorry. Anything else? One more quick thing. Oh, well, here, if anybody has questions that come up later, please take my information, follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter, what have you. I post about this kind of stuff there as well. Or if you're like really have something specific in mind and you want to do like a consultation call, all my information is there. So please, feel free to do so. I love talking about it. I love integrating this stuff into my personal and professional work. So yes. Once everybody's got that, we'll move on. Okay, I don't see any phones. You got it? Okay, all right, one phone. All right, here we go. So this was just like a last-minute ad. Mr. Loomer said that there is this new product, Brevity, which is a sponsor here today. It is a captioning tool that works within Premiere. I haven't tried it, but he just said they have a copy to give away. And so we're going to have a little bonus trivia question. Whoever gets it right, I believe I can get that information from Mr. Loomer and give someone a copy of this captioning software. All right. So again, shameless log rolling. The podcast I do with my friend Matthew is called Adaptation Nation. It's all about media that's based on other media, books that are movies that are based on books, plays that are based on movies, video games turned into TV shows. Everything, almost everything, is so IP-driven these days that most content is sort of adapted from one thing or another, which we just sort of find fascinating. And so in the spirit of that, Ian Fleming's first James Bond novel is 1953's Casino Royale. The question is, name the very first adaptation of a James Bond story. Anyone? Have I gone too deep?
Thunderball? No, too far back. 1956 TV.
Say again?
1956 TV production of Thunderball, wasn't it?
It was so close. You say you. It's a trick question almost. We just talked about it. Yes, there was a 1956 American television adaptation of Casino Royale in which James, I think you guys should fight it out. I don't know. I think it goes to you. Yeah, where James Bond, referred to in the show as Jimmy Bond, is an American CIA agent. It was horrible, apparently. Wrong-headed in every way. But that was technically the very first adaptation of Fleming's work. Okay, I'm sweating. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and thank you for coming.